NZ.
Kiwi.
102.2 Auckland. The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Kiwi.
Well, as part of the indie documentary series screening on the documentary channel on Sky TV every Saturday night, this Saturday is a documentary called Departure and Return, the final journey of the Rainbow Warrior. It's the history of the Rainbow Warrior through the testimony of 6 women. Interviews, archival footage and photos follow the journey of the Greenpeace ship right from its beginnings through, I guess, to its final departure. Claudia Pond is the director and producer of the film. She joins me this morning in the Kiwi studio. Hello to you, Claudia.
Good morning.
So your involvement with the Rainbow Warrior, does that go way back, does it?
Well, yes, actually, as a young mother and that, I used to go down to the waterfront to see the different protest boats that were going out to Mororoa and that over the years. But I became a member as a voter, nominated to the voting assembly of Greenpeace, which is like a governance of Greenpeace. Itself as an organization, and I was rubbing shoulders with the most extraordinary women who were former crew members and people involved with Greenpeace, and I was hearing this wonderful stories about the origins of the Rainbow Warrior and things that I knew the general public didn't know. And I really started off thinking I was going to be writing a book about this. So I went and interviewed about 6 women who had been former Greenpeace Rainbow Warrior crew members and had settled here in New Zealand. And then came the time of the 20th anniversary of the Rainbow Warrior bombing at Matari Bay. The new Greenpeace ship came along, and there was a commemoration.
Matari Bay is, of course, where its final resting place, isn't it?
That's
it's
right.
A dive site.
That's right. So we went from Whangaroa and went up the coast, down the coast to the site itself. And they had divers from Greenpeace and that who went down and put a memorial plaque through there. Well, I was able to document that on film, so I knew that was important to have if I had this vision of making a film, as it turned out to be, to my amazement. I had just borrowed a camera from my place of work. I had rung up a friend and said, if I want to make a documentary film that was sort of festival quality, what would I need to do? And she said, all you need is a 3-chip camera, whatever that was.
The digital camera?
Yeah, yep, that's right, moving camera. Yeah. That's right. And so I was at work one day borrowing a long lead for my class, and I asked the technician if we had one of these things, and he said, oh, yeah, here, sure, and he handed it to me. So thanks to him, I actually started documenting things. In my interviews with these women, I also documented on the camera, as well as doing it on an audio tape, so that I could then just have it transcribed. So one thing led to another. At Greenpeace, I had the help of a young man, volunteer in his 20s. I knew he might be au fait. Somebody that generation might be au fait with the technology.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he said, I've just been organizing a whole lot of films with documenting what these women are actually talking about. He pulled them off the shelf, and sure enough, the exact things he was talking about, like the Rainbow Warrior, the origins of it from London, these young people who went and to save the whales. That's what they were doing. They're going to Iceland to save the whales. So a lot of these women, as I say, lived in New Zealand. I think because of the bombing of the Rainbow Warrior, they gravitated here, and a lot of them live on Waiheke Island in an eco-village.
And thank goodness for some of these people that actually documented some of the stuff back then, so that you actually have this footage to use. Actually, it's interesting. Where did the boat come from? I mean, what was it?
Oh, well, it was a derelict. These young people had this vision of saving the whales. Originally, I think they wanted to go to Antarctica and actually do it there, but that was a long way from England. But they just, it was amazing. Denise Bell, a woman called Denise Bell, and there were about 4 of them, and Susie Newborn, that had this vision of saving the whales. So they went and they put an ad in the paper. They looked in the Maritime News. They found a ship, an old ship called the Sir William Hardy, which was sort of lisping in the ports of London somewhere. It was derelict and rusty and everything. And so they said they put a bid on it because it was up for auction or something. And so they put a bid on it, and then said, "Oh, we won the bid. Oh dear, now we have to go." This is a bunch of young people buying a ship.
Yeah.
And so they said, "Oh well, we need some money." So they actually went to the bank and got a loan from the bank. They fixed up. They all did the cleaning up themselves, and they, got the engine going and stuff like that.
What a project!
What a project!
Yeah.
And this is all documented in the film itself. It's a wonderful story. It really is. In the end, they actually got all their money recouped, and they got funding from the Dutch Wildlife Association or something like this. The documentary was made about what these young people were doing, this inspirational thing. And, I think they got it by public subscription from Holland when it was seen in Holland.
And so I suppose the boat almost took the journey of Greenpeace, really, in its development into probably a really highly professional organisation.
Eventually, yes.
Yeah.
But to begin with, it was David McTaggart, of course, who was somebody who had a vision as well, and he had been a businessman, so they had that sort of leadership as well as a lot of enthusiastic young people and a vision. So this is London, in the 70s. This is 1973.
And the boat really went everywhere, didn't it?
In the end, it did. It went to Canada and all along the American coast. And, of course, when it went into different ports, especially in Europe and that, they would have rallies and that, and so people would join Greenpeace, and the thing was not that well known, it needed to take. They did other actions around Windscale, I think, and different nuclear bases, and the GEM was another, and all this is in the film, talking about some of their campaigns. They were dumping nuclear waste. The governments were collectively dumping nuclear waste in the Bay of Biscay, and they went to bring their actions brought media interest, and so it became televised, and so people became aware of these things they hadn't been aware of.
And I remember seeing photos of the Rainbow Warrior and footage in Antarctica amongst the ice. As well. Yeah.
Well, and it also could have been in Canada up there. The sealing, those sort of issues were big for them as well.
And it was on the Rainbow Warrior where I suppose new tactics were employed, direct action tactics with inflatable boats, disrupting whaling operations, that kind of
and
of
also
thing.
the dumping of nuclear waste too, which were in barrels, and they tried to catch in the Zodiacs, and they would try to catch them. Would you believe the nuclear waste to prove, to take back? But
that would capsize some of those Zodiacs, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah. It was quite dangerous. Nobody was ever killed, as far as I'm aware, until Fernando Pereira, of course, was killed in Auckland in the Rainbow Warrior here.
How much of the documentary does look at the final events for the Rainbow Warrior in Auckland City?
Well, it talks about the Pacific journey, because they went to Florida to put sails on to remodify it so that they would be more efficient, travel-wise. Sort of walk the talk as far as using fuel and things. So they put sails on it, and then their next mission was to go through the Panama Canal and come through the Pacific. And of course, they go to Rongelap Island to help to relocate the people who lived there, who's in the Marshall Islands, whose island had been radiated, of course, by the Bravo and the different nuclear testing there during the 1950s. And so that footage is also in the film, and they come to Auckland. I think they actually stopped in Vanuatu on the way, but there's not so much, that was a goodwill mission sort of thing, and then they come to Auckland, and so it's about the welcoming to Auckland. It was a big deal. I worked with Greenpeace during all that time as well, and it was very exciting. It was, the Rainbow Warrior was coming, and they were inviting people on board, to see what they were going to do. I did an education pack at the time as an artist, actually, for them at the time. And I can remember being on board. I took my daughter with me one evening for just drinks and that, and I can remember that looking at the water, which is still, and thinking, safe haven, for the Rainbow Warrior, and all the things they've been through and all the actions they've been through. Yeah. Little did we know, right then, under the water, it was the plot to bomb the ship.
Were you working in the Auckland office when the Greenpeace office there was infiltrated by a French agent?
Well, that story is also in the film. One of my interviewees offered her home to that French agent, and it turned out they had no idea, even after the Rainbow Warrior had been bombed, that she had been sussing out all the wheres and wherefores. And they said they felt so naive and stupid afterwards when they realized that there were quite a few clues, But she would stay late in the office, and she would, snoop around looking through all their gear and stuff. They realize now, trying to get information. She was ringing back to Paris on their telephone every night.
Yeah.
In French, and I think they did speak French, but they didn't really think much of it.
Yeah.
Going
but it was
trips.
Auckland. It was, it was the 80s in Auckland.
Yeah, that's right. Of course, you opened your flat to,
yeah.
Anybody who was coming through, working for, volunteer for Greenpeace. That's right.
Well, I'm sure that story and much, much more will be told, and you'll be able to see it in the documentary called Departure and Return, the story of the Rainbow Warrior. It's on the documentary channel on Sky TV this Saturday evening at 9:30 p.m. Thanks, Claudia Pond, for telling us all about it.